Hello, everyone. Once again, it is our podcast entitled Life According to Dana. Hey, just wanted to take a moment and greet you and thank you for tuning in. Pray all is well with you. Hope your day is going well. But if not, maybe you can get some enlightenment and uplifting tuning into this, listening to this, viewing this, whichever one you're doing. Just wanted to remind you this is available on Spotify at Life According to Dana or YouTube. Life According to Dana. Go figure. So, just wanted to talk to you a little bit today about your foundation. Um, I had an experience the other day, and I was working on my final paper for my doctorate, actually, and I was speaking with one of my professors, and he was explaining to me that once your foundational question or statement is off, that everything that follows will be off. And it really made me start just thinking about life and how we process things. A lot of times we think because we learned a thing a certain way that it must be right, that it must be correct. And a lot of times it's foundationally flawed, is what I'm just kind of calling this today, where we just have some foundational issues and they are flawed. If you look in the natural, if your house has a crack in the foundation, it will unsettle the entire structure. One little crack is just like a prelim of really bad coming attractions, a preview, excuse me, of really bad coming attractions. And so when there's a foundation issue, when there's your whatever your structure is sitting on, if there's something wrong with what it's sitting on, it causes an imbalance. And so many things that we learn in life, and just through just everyday occurrences. That's life, ministry, anything, work. You can learn something at work. And if they leave one component out, it could make everything that you do after that wrong. You could have followed it to the T, but if you began wrong, then everything that follows it will be mutated. So now you have a bunch of people in church that are learning foundational issues in error. So let's say if you learned as a minister that you were supposed to just blindly serve someone without question because of their position, or that whatever came out of the pastor's mouth or the guest speaker's mouth, you had to take that as 100% infallible. Well, your foundational teaching is wrong. You have to look into the things of God, the word of God for yourself. Don't ever take anything I say at face value or anybody else. You should be invested enough in yourself and your walk and your life that you'll research things for yourself. When it came time to do this podcast, oh glory, goodness gracious, I had to learn so many new tricks. And they say, you can't teach an old dog new trick. Well, I'm just a living indictment against that. Yes, you can. So I had to learn to do things differently. I had to learn how to focus at one point, so I don't look like I'm talking down at the floor, or this and that. I'm still learning that, y'all. So if y'all see me look a little cockeyed or look to the side, I'm learning. But when it comes to how you learn a thing, foundational issues. So with me, it manifested in my paper. So if your general problem is not correct, everything that follows will be incorrect. It's like, if you go to the doctor and they say, wow, you have a runny nose, or your eyes, and you tell them, I have a runny nose, my eyes are watering, and they're like, yeah, you got a runny nose and your eyes are watering. And you give all these symptoms, but you never find out what the cause is. And that's what we do a lot of times in life. We treat the symptoms, but we never get to the root of the issue. We never get to the root of the problem. So therefore, all we're doing is correcting symptoms. All I was doing and being advised to, mind you, to do was to correct parts of the problem, but no one directed me to correct the core issue. So thank God I prayed and I said, God, I really need somebody to hear my heart, someone to not think I'm being lazy, someone not to think I'm not putting the work in, someone not to think that I'm slow or something. I need someone to explain this to me where I understand it. So, this is what happens to us a lot in life. People are explaining things, but they're not getting on our particular frequency. They're not speaking it in a language that we can relate to or that we can understand. I talk, sometimes about preference in preaching styles. Some people, they just can't listen to me because I'm not hooping and I'm not hollering and I'm not, and God said, because I'm not delivering it that way. So they can't, necessarily get with me because I'm just straight teaching, or if I'm exhorting, they might be able to get with that a little bit more because there's more emotion. If I'm not being emotional enough for people, sometimes they can't follow. It doesn't mean that I was taught wrong, or this is, or I missed that part of the class or whatever. But like with my paper, they were correcting the symptoms, but they weren't addressing the actual problem. So once I understood what the actual cause was of the debacle, I was fine. But I had to find someone that could speak my language, or a language that I could understand, so I could get my foundation solid and correct, so it could support the weight of my paper, of my final project. If the foundation is off in your life, if you have been taught things in error, or you're just processing things, because you think this is normal, first things first, we have to correct where you're coming from. You can't assume there's not like a 5-step guide to deliverance, because everybody has different core problems. Everyone has different situations that led them to assess the thing and react to it in their own manner. So before you go throwing your bandage on it, find out what the root is. When you get these words, sometimes these prophetic words, and people sometimes to me are pointing out the obvious. If you don't do anything with that to allow God into that, to work on that, to work on you, to work on you to be delivered, to work on you, not the people that you think are the reason for the problem. They're just a symptom, but you want God to resolve the core issue. A lot of times, we have different things. We have shame that we deal with. We have anger that we deal with. We have trust issues. We have abandonment issues. We just have all kinds of things. But what are they coming from? What is the core? What is causing this? Fear is a major cause of a lot of things. Foundational, man. It's just so prevalent in so many things. People react to things out of fear, and it comes out in all different kinds and manners. But if you're learning something, and what you're learning is flawed from the beginning, it's going to make everything that follows wrong and in error. So if I taught you that your whole function, your whole call in life was to carry my Bible, get me water, make sure I have everything that I need. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't serve. I am absolutely not saying that. I have served so many people in ministry and continue to do that. That is just me. I am a servant leader, And I don't ever feel like I've gotten to a place where I can't serve. I remember the day I got ordained a prophetess. You know, high time in the Lord. Hell, demons and dogs was rebuked off of me and sent to flying, heard them run out the door, and everything. And this is going to sound okay. Warning, warning, this is gross. So I went in the restroom and someone had just left a mess in there. And I was like, if I flush that toilet, this is going everywhere. I'm just trying not to be too graphic. And I was like, dang, who did this? Who would just come in here? And so while I was having my little rant about how nasty the person was that left this mess in here, I heard the Lord just as plain say, "Oh, are you too high now to clean this up?" I felt so small in that moment. I was like, "Oh no, Lord, no." Now this is my background. I've been cleaning churches since I was a kid, and I was pushing a Hoover. Nope, excuse me, that was a Kirby vacuum that was bigger than I was, cleaning the church every Saturday. It was me and my oldest brother and our grandparents. We cleaned that church every Saturday, and when I heard the Lord say, "Have you gotten so big now, so high up that you can't clean this up?" You have never seen anyone come out of a pair of stilettos that fast. I kicked those heels off. I took my stockings off. I found some bags, some plastic bags, wrapped my feet up, and I went to work. Took off my jacket, collar, everything, and I went to work. And I cleaned that bathroom till it was spotless. And yes, it was nasty and it was gross. And we were going out after that to eat. But here's where my foundation came into play. My foundation said, I was here to serve. That's what that collar means, that you're to serve, a bond servant. So I took it off so I could get back to the work that was before me to do. Nothing is beneath you. And if you feel like it is, check your foundation. You could be dealing with some arrogance. I have been rebuked for picking up paper off the floor. That's not your job. Let somebody listen. Yes, it is. Nothing. It's still my job. Oh yeah, I'm gonna still pick it up because that's my foundation. That's what I was trained to do. Nothing. I just can't step over a piece of paper because this is somebody else's job or something crazy like that. No, that's just not me. But that's my foundation. May not be yours. But I tell you, I thank God that He keeps me in check, that He reminds me that He was humble unto death. These are foundational issues that I'm talking about. If your leaders taught you to shoot for the big chairs on the pulpit, that's error. Your job is to serve. Foundational flaws. It is so easy. And see, when God starts pointing them out, it's gonna make you uncomfortable. Yeah. Especially if that's what you see or if that's what you've been taught, that's what you've learned. So many things. We've got all these formulas now, like in praise and worship. One of my pet peeves is who decided that it had to be two fast songs and two slow songs to be a bona fide worship service. I just don't understand that. Never will. Whatever happened to just allow the Spirit of the Lord to come in like we be slobbering and praying, asking for, and just have His way. And just disrupt the service. Just mess it up. Just tear it up. But if that is not what you've been taught, if that's not part of your foundational DNA, that'll probably mess with you. I remember being in services where the Spirit of the Lord just fell. Nobody had to lay hands on you. Nobody had to, slather oil on you or spit on you, anything. Just the presence of the Lord walked in the room so powerfully that people started just being slain in the spirit, bodies all up under chairs and things. Looked like a war zone in there, but people were being ministered to. So in that place, my foundation is, what can I say that could be any more profound than what the Spirit of the Lord is saying to his kids right now? So I will take a seat and let God have his way. Now, if your foundation is you have to speak, or you just feel like you done cheated the world of your anointing, that you just have to say something, I'm going to just tell you, check yourself. That's you. There is literally nothing that you could say that could out say what God is saying in that moment. And I have been blessed in my life to have had leaders in my life that saw and acknowledged the anointing of God in my life. Were they perfect? Nope. And neither am I. And again, yes, I must apologize. But they would acknowledge it. I remember when God restored me at one point in my life, I was so blessed to have a pastor that just let God have his way, just disrupted the service and let God absolutely roll me under the benches and have his way. I am so grateful that I was in an environment like that, because everything shifted in me that day. And I remember not being able to speak English for hours. Every time I opened my mouth, tongues came out. And it was just like I was speaking in tongues and I was trying to say stuff in English and it wasn't coming out. And I remember seeing my pastor sit down in his chair. He just sat down in his chair and said, we just going to let God have his way today, because this is important. If he hadn't been humble enough to allow God to finish what he had began in me that day, you probably wouldn't be listening to this podcast right now. You never know what your obedience to allowing the Spirit of God to manifest in someone else instead of you trying to get up and say something. You don't understand the impact that may have years later, days later, moments later. You just don't know. But if your foundation is that you have to always be heard, or you always have to be on, or you always have to be the center of attention, then you're going to press the issue. You're going to disrupt the flow of the spirit. You're going to disrupt people's lives. This is my life. This is life according to Dana. These are the things that I've experienced, and I pray what I'm saying to you, what you're hearing, is helping you, that you have to sometimes go back and look. Did I maybe learn this wrong? Could this be like, could this be me, Lord? Could this be me? Could this be even on the job? Could they have like missed telling me something? I can't explain to you how many times I've been on jobs, especially as I started, kind of climbing the corporate ladder, where at one point I had to rewrite an operations manual because they kept talking to me like I already knew things that I didn't know. So, you see these manuals called Windows for Dummies or Mac for Dummies or whatever subject it is for dummies. Well, I had to write a manual at the bank for dummies, because what you know and you do every single day, you begin to forget the basics, and you'll just talk from where you are instead of identifying where that individual is coming into this from. So what ended up happening with me on one of my jobs was I was in place into a group leader position, and so they talked to me like I already knew some very important steps, like to go into a different part of the banking system to get to all the other things that I needed, to all the other steps. Well, I had never been in that part of the operating system. The department that I came from, we used a completely different part of the operating system. Same bank, but different part of the operating system. So there were things in their system I didn't even know existed because I did not need to know. So now I'm sitting here and I'm like, and they were like, well, it's right there in the manual. And I was like, yeah, but your manual starts from point C and it skips point A and B. So when I started writing the operation manual, I basically idiot proofed it. Turn the computer on, go to this screen, put in a picture of the screen, what it should look like, so you knew you were in the right part of the operating system. Because, of course, because it's a bank, you had to sign in to like 5 different places, but because they did this every day, they never in their wildest imaginations thought, oh, oh, you didn't know that? Oh, oh, wait. Oh, you didn't know? Oh, you didn't know that God is for you and not against you? Oh, you didn't know that no weapon formed against you could prosper? Oh, wait. Oh, you didn't know that you was actually supposed to research the word for yourself? Oh, oh, you didn't know that you could pray and ask God for things? Oh, wait. You didn't know that you could be truthful and you could just be flat out real with God, that you didn't have to come with him with a religious standpoint, that you could actually talk to God like I'm talking to you right now, that you could actually go to God with every part of your life, and that he was actually interested in these things, that you could actually have a conflict in church and there was actually a right way to resolve it in the Bible. Oh, you didn't know? Yeah, there are foundational things that aren't taught. You hear a lot of people say, "Oh, all the church talk about is money." Well, okay, they have bills to pay too, but it's not all about that. Though I do know in some churches it really is, and in some ministries too. But get your foundational issues right. Who are you? What are you supposed to be doing? I remember hearing years ago Miles Monroe say, if you wanted to find out what the purpose of this microphone is, you would go to the manual, the operator's manual or the manufacturer's manual, to see what it was supposed to do, what it's capable of doing, how it's supposed to function. And basically, I think he actually used a mic stand as the illustration. But what he was saying was you go back to the manufacturer to find out what the purpose of this thing is for. Well, our operating manual as children of the Most High God is the Bible, Genesis to Revelation. Yeah, that's your operating manual. If there's something you want to know about, look in there. If you don't see it, you can ask Abba. You can ask the Father. And a lot of times, what I'm seeing is people sometimes overcomplicate the gospel. They make it all dark and spooky and religious, and a lot of what you hear isn't God, it's just man. They turned it into something it was never, intended to be. So it's about love. It's about the Father's love, where he loved the world so much that he sent his only begotten son, that whosoever believed in him would not perish but would have everlasting life. Now that's kind of foundational and it's pretty straightforward and simple, don't you think? So how did all the rest of this get in there and all complicated and all cray cray, and you got to stop doing this and you got to stop doing that, and you have people thinking that they can't come into the house of the Lord really the way they are because they're not good enough to be there? Well, this is where they're supposed to come to get restored, to get healed, to get delivered, to get encouragement, to get inspiration, to find out who their true identity is. But we have been taught this so foundationally wrong that it's about everything but that. I mean, seriously, when was the last time many of you heard an altar call in church? Because what's happening is the church is church in the church. They don't have outreach programs. They don't have evangelism programs. They are not involved in their communities. When COVID hit, oh man, it told the story on some foundational flaws, man. There was nothing in place to even be able to call the people, and check on them to see how they were. Nobody had it. A database. Nobody had a calling tree. Nobody had a way of finding out if everybody was okay. You couldn't go to the house, but goodness, you could call and check. But these things were not foundationally taught, so people didn't know that they could, have a relationship with God on their own, that they didn't need to have to physically be there. And we lost a lot of people because they were like, well, if I'm not giving my money, like nobody's calling to see if I got bread, to see if I got milk. This, we call that blizzard preparation food, milk, eggs, and bread. If you got it, you can live for 2 weeks. If you're from Western New York, you know what I'm talking about. Just basic staples that you keep in your house at all times in case the buffalo weather switch up on you, and you okay, because you can get real creative with this. So we discovered during COVID that so many things were foundationally wrong or just hadn't been part of the foundation at all. So now we got a bunch of people that are hurt, that are angry, that are mad, just disheartened, don't even want anything to do with church anymore, because when they needed it, there was nothing built into the foundation to be able to stand the weight of what had just happened. There were no emergency plans in place. And living again in a place where a blizzard might happen tomorrow. Yep, I saw it snow on May 1st on my 18th birthday. Yes, it did. And so at any moment, we're subject to this atmospheric change here, lake effect, whatever. And so you would think, as part of our foundational plan, that we would have something in place for emergencies. But if the last generation didn't do it, this next generation stands a possibility of this not being deemed necessary in the foundational plan. Every church, every ministry, every job, every entity that's doing any type of business or operation should have some type of emergency plan, that in case of something happening to the actual structure, something happening that you can't get to it, that there should be a reaction that secures and makes sure that everyone is safe. Foundational flaws. Started with my paper. Helped me see so many things. It reminded me also of same thing, freshman year, high school. I scored so high on the math entrance exam at the school that I ended up going to my freshman year that they put me in advanced algebra. Well, here was the problem. Everybody, and I mean everyone in this class, has seen algebra except me. So I'm explaining to my teacher, who I declared was a computer because she talked like this. Um, I kept telling her, I'm missing something. I don't get this. And she thought she thought I was being lazy. I wasn't applying myself. I'm crying to my parents, going, I will fail, I will fail. And I had never failed a subject in my life. And I was like, I don't get it. And so I got through the first 2 quarters failing because I did not have the original formula. I couldn't quote it to you right now. Somebody paid me X plus Y equals something. I don't know. So I didn't have it. So I ended up failing this course because no one heard what I was really saying. So my sophomore year, I go to a whole different school, and a young lady who was actually a freshman, and I was supposed to be her big sister at the school. I was just talking to her one day, and I was like, "Oh man, algebra is just so weird to me." And she said, "What's wrong?" And so I explained to her. She said, "Oh, I can help you with that." She said, "I'll come over your house and I'll explain it to you, and it's real easy." And I said, "Okay." So she came over to my house, and in less than a half hour, she explained to me what I had missed for an entire school year. 30 minutes. But she took me back to the foundational problem. She took me back to basics. She took me back to the beginning. And when I got that, everything else made sense. See, algebra made sense to me long as it had numbers. But without the numbers, I was like, I will never use this again in life. Why am I even being tortured with this? This makes no sense. Imagine my surprise when I saw it again in college. Statistics. Oh, no. Mm-mm. So a lot of times we've developed mental blocks about things that weren't corrected, or things that weren't healed, or things that were taught wrong, things that went wrong. And a lot of times people are repeating the same errors because they have been taught wrong. They are foundationally flawed, and it's really, it is their fault, and then in some it's really not, because they learned it wrong. So I guess I'm asking us to have a little bit more grace and understanding and mercy when we're dealing with some things, because a lot of times it really is because we're foundationally flawed. I pray this has helped you. I pray it helps you go back and look at some things and not just take them at face value, but dig into it. Find out the truth for yourself. And if you have questions, ask. And keep asking until you get the answer that helps you understand what is the core or the root of the issue. Pray you're blessed. Thank you again for tuning in to Life According to Dana. You guys take care. Bye bye.